Right, so I figured I would get the spooky season rolling by trying to tackle a list which genuinely terrifies me, and that's ranking the top 10 most broken abilities in all of Bleach. Now, 8 years ago, I did a similar video to this looking at what I believe to be the top 5 most broken abilities in the series. The only problem was the Thousand Year Blood War arc had barely gotten off the ground, and so we hadn't even met like 2/3 of the Sternritter at that point. So when it came back around to today, when I was doing my research for this version of the video, I had my head in my hands at one point, realizing that maybe half of the Sternritter alone could make a list like this. And of course, it's no secret that Bleach is home to a massive catalogue of weird, wonderful, and absolutely bonkers powers, which don't seem to have any kind of rhyme or reason. But that's part of why we absolutely love the series as fans. Kubo gets so creative with his abilities, creating some truly unique and marvellous powers that in many cases help to define the characters and etch them into our memories. That being said, it does make a list like this quite difficult. And honestly, when I was coming up with my 10 for this list, I knew I wouldn't be able to make everyone happy. To be honest, I'm not even sure I'm happy with it. At the end of the day, I'm pretty happy with spots 1 and 2, but everything else I think is genuinely fair game. And there were so many characters and abilities that couldn't make the cut where I felt they genuinely deserved to. Like Soifon's Nigeki Kesatsu ability, Yugrum Hashwalth's The Balance, Masked Masculines, The Superstar, Askin Naklavar, Pernida Pankajaz and their Shrifts, Xyloporo Granz's Gabriel ability, Yuha Bucks, Al's Valen, most of Yamamoto's Bankai. There is just so much that could have made the cut and didn't, and I feel kind of bad about that, but I think at the end of the day I have to settle with what I've come up with, and you know, I'm all right with it. But I'm also very keen to find out what you guys have put, because I truly think this could be such a subjective list. And I really want to know, obviously, like always, where we actually mesh, if you've got similar picks to me, but I'd also love to see who else makes your list and why. So as always, please let me know in the comments below. And before we get started, guys, if you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure to do that now, because you're in the perfect place for Bleach content like this every single week. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up as well if you enjoyed it, because it does help with the exposure, it helps my channel, and it helps the video get out there to more Bleach fans like yourselves. And if you do want to support me that bit further, we have a Patreon for the channel too, where you can support me for as little as $1 a month. You can gain early access to my videos, and of course, an enormous thank you goes out to everyone who is already supporting me over there. I truly, really appreciate it. And without further ado, let's kick off this list. And before we begin, just one final thing. This is from the manga only. We'll probably do another list at another time, including things like the light novels and maybe even anime filler as well. It's just if I'd included all of that, I probably would have lost my mind, especially at some of the stuff that's in those novels. So for now, we're doing manga only, but obviously your lists can contain whatever you like, so leave them in the comments below. Alright, and so coming in at number 10 on this list to get things going is Orihime Inue's Shunshin Rika abilities. Now, this being at number 10 meant it was obviously vying for that spot with a number of other abilities in the series, but in my opinion, I'm happy having Orihime on here. It's been noted numerous times in the manga that her powers encroach on God's domain itself. It might look like she just heals and defends, but in reality, she is rejecting events that have actually happened. This means she's able to do some truly incredible things, such as restoring entire lost limbs, or apparently restoring entire halves of people's bodies, such as with Menoli Malia. There is a little bit of contention with the limits of this power, I would say anyway, certainly in the canon manga. The way Kubo draws Menoli's injuries, it really looks like she is dead, and Orihime successfully brings her back to life, which would be an incredible achievement. However, there are a couple of times later on in the manga where it seems like she can no longer do this, such as when she's unable apparently to revive Ichigo after his fight with Ulquiorra, the second final battle when he actually dies. And at the start of the Thousand Year Blood War arc, she seems to make no attempt to revive the deceased Arrancar in Hueco Mundo. So I'm not entirely sure where the limits of her power actually lie, but regardless, what she can actually do is truly incredibly impressive. You know, when it comes to her defensive capabilities as well, she even defends against almighty Yhwach in the very final battle of Bleach. Orihime might be a contentious pick because I do think her powers seem to fluctuate throughout the series, but the very notion of what she's able to do, the fact that even someone like Aizen commends her for saying her powers, you know, trespass onto God's domain, I'm pretty happy with her being on the list. And coming in at number 9 is an ability I really enjoy, and that's Tsukishima Shukuro's Book of the End. An ability so scary and powerful, it basically decided the entire trajectory of a story arc. Now, Tsukishima's ability, again, is very easy and simple to use. He simply has to cut someone, and he's able to immediately insert himself into their past as someone of note to them. And essentially what this amounts to, in a rudimentary way, is total mind control. It's obviously not really mind control when you get into the minutiae of it, but for all intents and purposes, that is what it achieves, and he manages to turn Ichigo's closest friends and family against him. Although it's really quite clever because he's not really turning them against Ichigo. Ichigo himself is doing that. All Tsukishima has done is turn them on to him. And that's potentially what makes it so dangerous. But I also love the sheer amount of applications this power actually has. Kubo took it to brand new heights in the fight with Byakuya when Tsukishima cuts the inanimate ground beneath him and inserts himself into the very history of the land that they were fighting on, which is completely bonkers. Again, the nice variations on his power. He cuts Byakuya and inserts himself into Byakuya's past as his mentor. There's a bit of debate between fans as to what this actually means. I've always read that scene to be Tsukishima saying that he has gained the disparity between their strengths in terms of training. By cutting Byakuya, he has grown to be able to match Byakuya toe-to-toe, because normally I don't think he would be able to, but by cutting him, Book of the End has granted him that training that he would have had by being that person in Byakuya's past. So it's a truly devious and dangerous power, one that is apparently so easy to use as well, and it can just completely shape an outcome of a situation. So Book of the End, I think, absolutely deserves its spot. See, I just look at my list, and I genuinely think any of these could be almost any position on here. They're all completely crazy. And coming in at number 8 is just Ichimonji Shikai. Now, I had a bit of a difficulty when I began this list. I was thinking to myself, how do I include Zanpakuto? Because they're not really abilities. Zanpakuto have abilities. And if I was going to do Zanpakuto, I would just do the top 10 Zanpakuto list again. So basically what I've come down to is, if a Zanpakuto has a singular ability, then that can be counted. That's all it can do. That's fine. But if there's one that has numerous abilities, I've just chosen the one I believe to be the most broken. But here we have Ichibei Hyosabei's Ichimonji, which, like I said, its Shikai form has just the one ability, but that in itself is crazy. By splashing ink on any part of his opponent, Ichibei can remove the name of whatever he has splashed, and by doing so, it completely loses all power, instantly being nullified and completely worthless. Again, it deserves to be on this list. I think the sheer ease of use, Ichibei just has to activate his Shikai and then clash with something, get some ink on it, and it loses its name. You see this in full force against Yhwach himself. Ichibei just completely has him on the ropes nearly the entire battle, covering his sword. He says, you don't know the name of that sword anymore. It no longer has any power. He covers Yhwach in ink, just removes him, strips him of his name completely. And I think it's obviously fitting that the leader of the Zero Division has such a broken power to his name, but I think it's completely fair for it to be on this list, and thematically it's an awesome ability as well. Coming in at number 7, we have another Zanpakuto with a singular ability, and that is Aizen's Kyoka Suigetsu's Kanzen Saimin, or Complete Hypnosis. This one was originally higher up in my estimations, but just seeing what kind of comes after it, I couldn't really justify it. Aizen himself is monstrously powerful, and his Shikai ability is totally broken, hence its position on this list. Basically, Aizen's Shikai, as you all know, can create perfect illusions that totally, deceive all 5 senses, and Aizen's able to create something that looks and feels and sounds and smells totally real, deceiving people until it's too late. And, there are basically no limitations to this power. When it gets directly compared in the manga to something like Sakanade, it's just so easy to see why Kyokusui is just so much more powerful and has so much more versatility and different applications. And Aizen obviously uses this power liberally throughout the series, confusing the entire Gotei 13 into thinking they're attacking him, when in reality they are actually attacking Hinamori. And he also uses his power to deceive Yhwach the Almighty at the very end of the series as well. I don't think it's any surprise that Kyokusui Getsu's complete hypnosis makes this list. Potentially it's a surprise it's not higher up, but I think that just goes to show the caliber of abilities left to come on this list. But I think complete hypnosis, it was basically the catalyst for the entire end of the Soul Society arc, so I think it's more than worthy of being on here. And so coming in at number 6 on this list, rounding out this bottom half of the video, is Yamamoto's Zanjitsu Gokui ability, or Zanka no Tachi West. And so, unlike the last 2 Shinigami, I've just chosen the one ability here because Ryujin Jaka has just so many abilities. And I genuinely think that Zanka no Tachi West is probably the absolute pinnacle of Yamamoto's power. In this form, he is cloaked in Reiatsu that takes the form of fire itself, just billowing off of his body, and it makes him completely impossible to touch. His body apparently reaching temperatures of 15 million degrees. He has become essentially a walking sun. Royd gets close to him at one point, attempting to strike him, but his entire blade is just removed from existence. Essentially, the reason I think West is just so insane is that it takes the power of East, which is originally just condensed onto the edge of Yamamoto's blade, and drapes him in it, because anything that is touching Yamamoto at this point is being removed from existence itself. And so I'm pretty happy with putting this part of his Bankai on the list. Although, it's Yamamoto. There are so many things he can do that are just completely obscene. Enetsu Jigoku is just a Shikai ability, but it looks completely mad compared to many things we've ever seen in the series before. But Zanka no Tachi West, for me, is the true pinnacle of the late Captain Commander's abilities. Okay, moving into the top 5 now, and I hope you are ready for a certain race in the series to pretty much dominate this list. Starting things off with number 5, we have Lil Barrow's The X-Axis, and it's just godlike. It is godlike, and many of these abilities are coming up next, and that is really what distinguishes them from the rest. I feel like Lil Barrow's true power kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't expect this for him at all, but the true power of the X-Axis means he is completely unstoppable. His attacks can penetrate everything. There is no defense that can stop him, but at the same time, his true body becomes unable to be hurt. He phases through everything. Much as in the same way as he can't be stopped, his attacks can't be stopped, nothing can stop him either. And it's just ridiculous. Like, you see Kyoraku actually hit him point blank with one of his blades. It goes straight deep into his shoulder. But then the sword just, drifts out of him as though he were smoke. And it's just crazy. And obviously X-Axis kind of leads into his Vollständig and all that sort of thing, which isn't really part of the X-Axis itself. We're just looking at the Shrift, and the Shrift alone is just completely mad. Like, he shoots through 2 defending Royal Guard members and still manages to kill Oetsu. Really, this guy turned out to be so much more dangerous than I had anticipated, and I think as the kind of holy warrior of God, a holy someone who bestows judgment on Yhwach's foes, it's more than fitting that he is this powerful in the series. At number 4, we have a fairly old school ability. Feels kind of weird to say Fate Karakura Town is old school, but I guess it kind of is. and that's Espada number 2, Baragon Louisenbahn's Respirar. And I think it's when you've been in the Thousand Year Blood War arc, when you've been as deep in the Thousand Year Blood War arc as we have, it's easy to forget that there were some abilities that could hold a candle to the Sternritter, and Baragon's is one of them. He is just a walking force of nature, and there's a reason he was ruling Waco Mundo for as long as he was. I wouldn't mess with him. He basically continuously can emit this ooze, this miasma, that is capable of touching something and then aging it until the point where it dies and turns to dust. And, you know, thematically, it's completely awesome. I remember just my jaw hitting the floor, when I saw Baragon's Resurrection for the first time, but also when he then used Respirar. I thought it was unbelievably cool. But in terms of how broken it is, again, it's just so easy to use. He can just send it out immediately with little to no preparation. He can control how fast and how far it goes. And the moment it touches something, that something rots and dies and decays and turns to bone and then to dust, as we see with Soifon's arm in an amazing scene where her arm just rots, turns into a skeleton and disappears. Hachi, the exact same thing happens to his hand. But crucially, there was a time where we thought maybe Kido can deal with Baragon, and when Hachi stepped up to the plate, we were like, knew it. Except immediately Kubo takes those expectations and throws them out of the window when Baragon rots and decays Kido. And you get the amazing cliffhanger of that chapter where he's like, did you really think Kido was ageless? And that's kind of why, to me, Baragon more than deserves this spot this high up on the list. His power, sure, he as an individual is flawed. You know, he's quick to anger, he's very arrogant, quick to rage, but there's no getting around the cold, hard facts that if you get touched by Respirar, unless you happen to quite literally be an immortal, ageless being, you're probably going to die. Okay, and here we are with the top 3. And these were kind of potentially the easiest for me to rank. Certainly 1 and 2 I'm pretty happy with overall. And with number 3, we've got Gerard Valkyrie's The Miracle Shrift. Now, The Miracle, again, if you've seen my video where I ranked the Sternritter in terms of their strength and power and ability and all that sort of thing, I put Gerard as number 1, and I wholeheartedly stand behind that. And the Miracle is a massive part of that. The Miracle is a kind of weird, slightly abstract and obtuse ability, but it effectively boils down to Gerard can't be killed. And not only can he not be killed, but any time he is injured or a part of him is destroyed or something like that, it actually comes back stronger than ever before. And Gerard returns larger than ever before and becomes this hulking, godlike monstrosity. And I've actually grown to have more of an appreciation for Gerard over the years. I used to think he was a big, dumb sort of meat sack like Yami who was just there to be beaten around. But actually the Miracle is really quite cool, and I love the themes as well of this holy warrior of God who won't die. I love Gerard's line where he's like, I'll wield my blade even in death for my lord. And the Miracle allows him to do that. You know, there's a great moment where Kenpachi just slices off his arm, but as though it were nothing, Gerard just grows a new one, bigger and stronger than ever before. And we have never really seen anything like Gerard in the series before. He's killed once when Byakuya punches through his face at the very start. His helmet comes off and the back of the helmet has a hole in it. So Byakuya has basically sent Senbon Zako through his head. But the Miracle activates and Gerard returns massive and defeats everyone. He's then killed again when Kenpachi cuts him in half, but you better believe the Miracle activates, his body stitches itself back together again, and he's even bigger than he was before. And then he's killed again when the captains team up, freeze his body and smash his head, and he comes back bigger and presumably stronger than ever before. Kubo was quite obviously making a statement about Gerard and his power. He is an undying angel of God, and the Miracle grants him that. And obviously the miracle, I'm presuming anyway, stems from the power of the Soul King that he has deep inside him. As Askin notes, Gerard had that power before he was given a Shrift. But it just goes to show you that this power comes from God itself, and he basically can't die in lieu of an actual miracle happening, which is what happens in the manga. So I'm very content with putting Gerard here. I think, and like I said, I kind of love it these days. I remember in the manga I was kind of like, this guy literally won't die, this is ridiculous. But now I kind of commend Kubo for going all in like that. He doesn't give the good guys an out. Without Yhwach and his intervention, there's just no way they would have won. That's what I truly believe. And the miracle is the cause of that. Coming in at number 2 on our most broken abilities in Bleach list, we have Gremmy Thermo's The Visionary. Now, again, harking back to my video on the top 10 strongest Sternritter, I actually put Gremmy at 3rd on the list. And that was nothing to do with the Visionary, that was just down to his character being immature, not battle ready, doesn't really know how to fight at all, and doesn't really know how to use his power to its fullest potential. And let there be no mistake, the Visionary is Kubo at his wildest. Kubo literally sat down and he was like, I'm going to give this character the ability to imagine things into reality, and that's it. That's as complicated as it gets. Gremmy can literally just sit there and go, meteor. He can sit there and go, I'm going to bring out the void of space. Here's some lava. Here's a water cube to suffocate you in. I'm going to make my body so hard that you can't cut me, you can't damage me, I can't be killed. That's the sort of thing that Gremmy is capable of doing. Gremmy himself, like I said, he's not really in the right state of mind. He doesn't really know how to fight. At one point, he almost imagines his own death, which Kenpachi calls him out on. But there's no denying that the Visionary itself is something on almost completely different level to what we've ever seen before. He nearly destroys the entire Seirete during his fight. He can create life and remove life with a snap of his fingers, essentially. Not even that. Kubo hammers it home that the Visionary is so powerful that Gremmy can just do this with his hands in his pockets. He just looks at him and he's like, I'm going to create life now. Here's a second Gremmy. Here's Gwenael. Here's Shaz Domino. All these things that he can just do. And I think that's you can leave it there. He can just do. That's Gremmy Thermo. That's the Visionary at work, and I think it's more than fair for that to be at number 2. But number 1, what could possibly be more broken than infinite possibilities? And I think you probably already know the answer, and I wonder if we do have the same answer for number 1. But the one thing that's more broken than infinite possibility is controlling infinite possibility. And that, of course, belongs to Yhwach's The Almighty. With the Almighty, Yhwach is all-seeing, all-knowing, and all-powerful. Very fitting for the closest thing to God in the series. With the Almighty activated, Yhwach becomes some kind of eldritch abomination, his face covered in this darkness, eyes littering his body for a very literal depiction of his power. But essentially, Yhwach, the only real downside to this is he had to wait a little while to be able to use it. But once he can use it, he is nigh on unstoppable. He can see the future, first of all, but not just one linear future. Yhwach can see every future all at once, as though they were grains of sand before his very eyes. Yhwach can then alter the future depending on what he has seen, and he can use that ability to anticipate and counter everything that comes his way. And all abilities he sees, he knows, he understands them, and he knows how to stop them. This is a character who at the end of Bleach was nonchalantly throwing out lines like, all Bankai have been destroyed in the future. He's just done it. Yhwach brings himself back to life after Ichigo kills him because before his death, he foresaw his death and countered it. That's why I think the Almighty defeats things like the Visionary, because the Visionary could imagine Yuha's death, but Yuha has already seen that, countered it, and won't die. And I do, you know, I've been vocal in the past on this channel about not really liking the Almighty. I think Kubo definitely wrote himself into a bit of a corner with an ability that was just too strong. Although I do like it being countered by Kyoka Suigetsu. But the Almighty, in my opinion, is unquestionably the peak of Bleach abilities. It is the strongest, not, you know, the most broken thing we have ever seen. He was able to just use this ability essentially whenever he wanted, to do whatever he wanted, to defeat whoever he wanted. He was up against Ichibe, the leader of the Zero Division, and the moment he activated the Almighty, he could see everything Ichibe was going to do. He could alter the future and just destroy Ichibe with barely lifting a finger. So I'm very happy. The Almighty was the one I already knew was going to be number one when I even started this video. And to be honest, you know, just reading about it in more detail, looking back at the manga when he uses it to just control the outcome of his fights, look at the future, change it the way he wants to be, I'm happy with that being number one. But that's it for this list, guys. It was a bit of a nightmare to come up with. And like I said, I'm not even completely content with it. There are so many things I think should have been on here as well. But we've got it. We've got a list of 10 at the end of the day. And that's what I set out to do. So let me know in the comments below what you think of my list. Is there anything you would swap out? And of course, I'd love to see your lists as well to compare just how similar or different they might be. And as I'm losing my voice, I'm probably going to leave the video there. But I really do hope you enjoyed it, guys. Let me know, like I said, in the comments below what you thought of the list and leave your lists down below too. Happy October. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done already. And until next time, I'll catch you later. I'll see you then.